How is? Good evening. The light here working. I think the bulb is going on that one. Anyway, I hope you're all keeping well. I want to talk about the one of the most pressing and obvious things surrounding the Rona lockdown, and that is the elimination and annihilation of small businesses. Now, there's a reason for this. There's a this is not, you know, get it out of your head that the destruction of small business is because of some accidental, uh, byproduct or fallout of the coronavirus lockdown. No, this is, you see, they have a machine gun full of silver bullets, and these silver bullets are designed to deliver globalist policies, and one of them is the complete annihilation of small business. Now, you might ask yourself, well, why do the globalists want to destroy small business? Well, it's because they want to do all the other things regarding this lockdown, which I'll explain in a bit. It's concerning as psychopaths reach old age, they often go into psychosis, and they don't even hide. They like a Mr. Burns type. The hidden or the masked Mr. Burns comes to the surface. Now, but before I get to that, the reason why is quite simply the vast majority, overwhelming majority of small businesses all over the world are family owned, okay? And they tend to employ members of the family. They're dynastic, frugal business models where you might have a shop that was started, a shoe shop started by a grandfather, and the grandkids are working there. They might expand it, go into different ranges, and change the business model to go with the times. But generally it'll be in the same family. If it's in a community, it tends to employ locals from the community. And it's just the way it is. The kid down the street wants a job in my fish and chip shop. You give him a job, you give her a job in the shoe shop, and so on. But it tend to be very much employment focused on the local area or the family. Now, this is a big problem for the globalists because there's so many small businesses out there, and they employ so many people, and especially now when you compare it to the major corporations that run the world, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Netflix, all the big Amazon, all the big boys, they don't have much staff. They really don't have much staff, and like the big Wall Street and London investment banks don't employ the numbers they used to once employ, because so much of it is either outsourced or it's done through IT, and therefore computers basically. So a huge chunk of the employment in the West and all over the world, but we're talking about the West here specifically, work for small businesses. Everything from plumbers to a shop, to a pizzeria, to a fish and chips place, to a guy who provides landscaping services. And they're closed in terms of diversity. For the simple reason, these companies, when you add all their employers together, all these small businesses together, they employ vast numbers more than the big corporations put together. Because the days of the big corporations don't exist in the West anymore. Like the big, the factory that employs 10,000 people, they don't exist in the West anymore. So the majority of actual employment is in the small business world, and they can't get in there like they could get in the corporations. Like anyone who's worked for a major corporation and has dealt with human resources department will tell you that the human resources department is generally a nest of psychopaths. They pretend to be there on behalf of the staff to help them, but are actually spying on the staff for the management. That's the purpose. And these have their diversity quotas to fill in terms of employment. So the big corporations are subject to these diversity rules that they've gladly embraced, and so on. And the small business isn't, because the guy who runs the fish and chip shop, he employs the kid from down the street. So he's not subject to this diversity thing. So therefore, this represented a big problem for them. These small businesses were employing the vast majority of people in the West, and were not, shall we say, uh, partaking in the social experiment model of diversity and so on. So they have to be destroyed. Now, they can be, you'll say, well, what happened to all these businesses? Well, you say you have like, you'll suddenly see after the Rona ends, like you have Amazon selling books initially, right? Books and DVDs. You will have the Amazon of landscaping. So some people in the town had a landscaping company. It was ruined by the COVID lockdown. Suddenly, you'll have a landscaping global conglomerate called, Green Life, and the people that once had their own company doing landscape services will become subcontractors, ostensibly employees for Green Life. And you're going to see this happening all over. You're going to see an explosion of new mega companies that will be amalgamations of small businesses dealing in specific things. Like, a local garage that fixes cars, and, they'll all be piled into that. In Ireland, you'll see it in things like B&Bs. Like B&Bs in Ireland, generally homes, family-run businesses, they've all been wiped out by the Rona, right? So you'll have like Celtic Homes or Celtic Stay or something like that, a huge conglomerate who all the B&B owners will work directly for them. And then that way, because there's then a central office overseeing thousands of employees, they can now enforce the things on them, the diversity things and so on. And and yourself, the real reason why they flood the West with immigrants, and it's not the immigrants' fault, is so the upper middle class love it because they can lower the wages of the private sector. That's why civil servants love immigration, because their jobs will never be affected. But they can lower the wages of the middle class and working class by undermining them with immigrants, and so they can get more profits. And this is the part of the same thing. So a guy who might have making a good living from making sandwiches and coffee in a town, well, he'll now be working for something like a Starbucks, or he'll be something like that, or a Costa kind of thing, and he won't have the income he once had. Because, well, he's not the boss anymore. He can't run the company. He'd be subject. He can't do things like work 70 hours a week and make a lot of money so he can have like a good time when he goes on holiday. No, they'll restrict him to labour practices. You can only work 35 hours a week because you're now working for, Universal Coffee and Sandwich Company, conglomerate global international company. And that's the reason. They're deliberately destroying. The Rona is being used to deliberately destroy small businesses. So they can, because it was one thing they couldn't get their hands on. There was no, they could not really touch them, while they were making money, supplying needs to the local community. But now they have them on their knees. They can do whatever they want with them. It's the same thing they're going to do with the housing. They're going to relieve all the people of their mortgages and say, well, we're going to assume your mortgage from now on, but your house won't belong to your children. You can't leave it to them. It belongs to the state now. The Department of Living, the Domicile Project, this kind of thing. So where a legacy was built, where a family had a house, it was left to the kids. They will take that. They'll not everyone. They'll hit the middle class. All the middle class couples, young professionals that they chased into the suburbs with their model house from all the years of all the propaganda on TV about the perfect home and all this, and buying houses and all the property things and flipping and all that stuff. They're now completely at the behest and the mercy of the control system. And it is a control system. Now, why we have this is because the people running the world have no souls. And I could talk about the concept of what a soul is, but basically, a soul is the ability to be a human being. And when you look at people like Bill Gates, you don't see a human being in action. There's nothing in there. He's a fleshed robot, okay? And he's now at the stage where his psychopathic tendencies to own everything is now manufacturing, merging, what's the word, cascading into pure psychosis. The stuff he's coming out with is pure, like how anyone could listen to Bill Gates talking about, running the world's healthcare systems, like Monty Burns in The Simpsons, and not see the absurdity of, who is this guy? A guy from a wealthy family who his parents gave him money to start a computer company, is now running the world's healthcare policy. He thinks he's a god. This is one of the things, like Ellen DeGeneres. You can see when she was younger, she had a soul. See the pictures of her when she's young, it's almost impossible to believe that's what she became. You look at pictures of her now, she looks like the Nosferatu vampire. And that's because soul loss. And with that soul loss, she's turned into a monster. They tumble into psychosis at the end. And that's why they all get completely, that's why they're so incredibly dangerous. Now, there was this is why you have to be very careful of these people. So yeah, they have a desire to take the world with them. They have it. They're not when the aging Bill Gates wants to. He doesn't want to die. He's got that. He wants to live forever. He believed all his life that he would invent some kind of software, a computer that would keep him alive forever. And what he's discovering now, that life is not, like I said in the other video, a protein shake that's been shaken up or had electrodes put into it. They don't know what life is. They don't know what life. They just don't know what it is. They don't know how to make it. They don't know how to keep it. They don't know what it is. And so they're desperate. And this is, now again, this is the final days. Just like I said, I compared it to Robert Corman's film The Mask of the Red Death on the last VON. This is Prince Prospero. He's the new Prince Prospero. And the things like, it's all falling apart for them. You have this, from Epstein's Island. You see, although this is the dark part and they've done this to us, they've done this to us because they're desperate. They've failed with everything. And they're trying to literally rebuild humanity from the bottom up with a new way of thinking. And they're not getting it. It's not happening because they don't understand what we are. We're not like them. We're different. And that's why. But the thing is, I would just say to people, hold out. Eventually, they're going to give up on this one. They're going to give up on it. You have something like Dave Cullen talked about the World Economic Forum today having a COVID pass, and they dovetailed the carbon credit thing into it. Now, the World Economic Forum is people like Prince Charles, aristocrats. These are, again, Prince Prospero. These are people who have again, they're tumbling into psychosis. COVID-19 and the global lockdown. And you look at the age of them. Look at Fauci. He's been in that job since the 80s. The age of all these people, they're very, very old, and they're discovering now that all their technology and everything is not going to make them live forever. That they will be switched off like a computer. And they can't upgrade themselves because they don't know what life is. And they have no souls. So they can't, so they're going for broke now. And just bear with it because it will collapse in time. It absolutely will because it's a flawed model. Just like things will come back to where they once were in many surprising ways because human beings have an incredible fortitude to overcome gaslighting on that level. And I was just thinking, if I'm always talking about like I look at an individual and say that sums the fucking world up perfectly. Now I'll give you an example. Sinead O'Connor. I look, remember when she became a Muslim and every picture of her was with the veil and the burqas and everything on her. She's going, yeah, and all the screaming and everything, right, in Arabic. You look at her Twitter page now, you can see she's not interested in the Muslim thing anymore. She now calls herself, where she had the Islamic name, Chicken Shawarma, whatever it was called, and then Sinead O'Connor and Magda David. It's now Sinead O'Connor, aka Chicken Shawarma, whatever her name is in Arabic, and she saw Black Lives Matter stuff. She doesn't get many likes anymore for someone who's as famous as she is. You can see when she first converted to Islam, her Facebook homepage and Twitter page was full of Islamic people saying, "Oh, we're glad to have you, blah blah. It's wonderful to see you come and join Islam." They're not on her page anymore because they soon figured out that she was full of shit. This is just her latest thing. She's going to be something else in a few months. Just watch. But that's what those types are like. But she's a reflector. She's like an archetypal reflector for the system. So her whole solution to herself was, I'm going to fix myself at Islam. Now that's being pushed to one side, and she's Sinead O'Connor again, and Chicken Shawarma is in brackets or parentheses, and all the Islamic people have left her page. And her megalomania kicks in when she was saying things like, "There's too many men in Islam. It's time to let the ladies in, lads," and this kind of thing. They're not like they're not very. She is like, I don't know. Maybe she was a nice person at one time, but I don't know anything about her really. She's a fascinating subject to watch. She's a fascinating lab rat because within her you can see the dysfunctionality that they're trying to interject into all society. She's not very intelligent, not very bright, but damn, what's the word? Forceful in her opinions of things she doesn't even have the slightest clue about. And every new thing is the ultimate solution. And that's what the globalists are like. Every new thing is the ultimate solution. And this is the ultimate solution, but like anything else, like climate change, it'll fade out. Reasons to be positive, part 2020. I watched a movie from 1984 the other night called The Day After. And a very, very good TV movie about basically what happens to a community in Lawrence, Kansas when World War III and the nuclear strikes start out. Very dark, very good film, very well made, great acting and everything, and fantastic acting. Beautiful insight into people and things like that, but the goodness of humanity. Now, that's a generation who grew up believing at any moment the bomb would drop. That's how they had their, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes Go to War. I can remember as a little kid underneath my parents' bathroom sink in Ballymun was a book in Irish telling you how to survive a nuclear war. And the absurdities of things like when the bomb drops, go cover your head, or that kind of thing. Put a few cans of food in the corner of a room and wash yourself where there's no water. The nonsense. Until you get the all clear, and you can see that the same thing has come around with the Rona. Right now, do we live in fear of nuclear war anymore? No. Within what was it, 6 years of that film, the day after being made, the Soviet Union collapsed, and suddenly that didn't exist anymore. The same thing will happen with the Rona. Just watch those types of people like Sinead O'Connor. They are archetypal reflectors of the dysfunctionality of the control system. And as they start to migrate and fluctuate between their causes, and individuals in your own life like that, who jump from one cause to the next, know that the globalists are exactly the same. They come from the same place where there's no soul. There's no connection to anything, just merely the desire to live according to platitudes and then to empower yourself over other people uh, by invoking these platitudes, these ideas. It won't last. It won't last. And just watching that movie really, really dawned on me. Like that, 1984, they were telling the world, "You're screwed." 6 years later, 1990, the wall fell down. It fell down. The same thing with the Rona. The day will come and just be a memory. But they're in the meantime they're going to try and like if you have a small business, what I would say to you is hold on to it as best you can. Even if you have to shut down or something, or to even move it into your home, or into a van, rather if you have to rent the premises, just hold on to it. Just hold on to it as long as and eventually it will come back around again. Don't be scooped up by these conglomerates, these massive franchising operations they're going to set up in the wake of this, because that won't last either. That won't last either. I'm looking at the comment sections of rags like the journal.ie. The journal.ie, the comment section a few weeks ago was all like, "We got to keep the lockdown going. I'm dying. I'm going. Oh, jeez, my mother's dead. They're all going to die." Now, the comment section of that paper is now, there's a scamdemic. Who is Bill Gates? Who the hell does he think he is? And they're the comments getting them. Look, what happened in Sweden? They didn't have a lockdown. Open up the pubs, open up the shops, let us go back to our lives. Enough. That's what's happening now. The fulcrum and the pivot point is starting to squeak. Hold fast to that which is true, and don't live in this moment. Keep the song in your heart and look at that future, because I got news for you. they're not looking as slick as they like you to think they are. They just have better marketing agencies. That's all. And all the marketing agencies and PR firms and spin in the world can't do what they will never have: the endurance of the human spirit. Take care. Love you all. Oh, back on Facebook tonight.